Usually I just start fielding questions, as you guys know, and girls. I just wanted to share with you some thoughts I've had from the past few days before we get started. I was shocked, sad, and angry when I saw the policeman due to a handcuffed George Floyd on his stomach that led to his death. He should be punished to the fullest extent of the law for the crimes he has been charged with, in addition to being charged with treason for failing to uphold the badge and the uniform he was entrusted with. I have the utmost respect and admiration for the police and the job they do under trying circumstances. They allow us to have a great country on a daily basis. The Minnesota cop failed the 99% of the police that do a great job, and we are all paying a price for that. I've listened to many people talk the past few days, and the one that resonated with me the most was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He also recognized that 98 to 99% of the police do a tremendous job in tough situations, and we must do all we can to correct the small percentage that don't do a great job on a daily basis. Kareem was one person talking sensibly and with solutions. This is not a political issue. We have had similar situations in St. Louis in 2014, Baltimore in 2015, and others recently and prior to those. It's a societal issue that we all have to join in to correct. Good deeds and doing the right things by all in society will far outweigh people pontificating with their words or any amount of money can solve. Sports brings people together, and I look forward to the Broncos and the NFL leading that charge. Thank you. What do you got, Nikki?
Your discussion with players, your fellow coaches today, what were some of the things that were talked about and how did that go?
I thought it went great. You know, Joe Ellis led that discussion. I'm going to have a team meeting with the team on Thursday, you know, through the virtual Zoom. But Joe led the discussion today, and, you know, several players and some coaches added comments to it. And I thought it was a very productive and good meeting. And we wanted to have that meeting before the Broncos released anything from a statement publicly.
Next, we've got Arnie Stapleton, followed by Troy. Arnie, go ahead, please.
Hey, Vic, you mentioned Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with an eloquent statement. Somebody else who had an eloquent statement over the weekend was Justin Simmons. And I'm wondering if you're familiar with what he said, what you think of that from Justin.
Yeah, I thought it was great. You know, Justin is a great person, great leader, and got his head screwed on correctly. And he sees the problems and how they need to be solved, and he's doing it peacefully, and he's searching for solutions. And it's easy for everybody to identify the problems. We all know the problems, but we need to search for solutions, and I think Justin is one of those guys that will help us find solutions and lead us out of this mess that we're in.
Next, we've got Troy Rank, followed by Mark Kisla. Troy, go ahead, please.
Coach, what are your goals coming out of this? You know, when you look at how you address this in a locker room as the leader of men, what do you hope to, as your goals as you guys try to move forward in sport?
As it relates to the
racial injustice that's created this, sparked this protest, and you deal with, you know, a large amount of African Americans and minorities in your own locker room, what are your kind of common goals as you try to move forward in a sporting sense, in a locker room?
Well, I'm fortunate, as we all are in sports, particularly at the highest level, that our locker room, our teams have no boundaries. And we have players, coaches, people that work for the team from all different ethnicities, from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, nationalities, religious beliefs. And over the years, all of those have been blended in together seamlessly most of the time. And I think sports is a great forum for that. And luckily, and it just proves how people can get along, because I've been in the NFL or in pro football since 1984, and I never have been around a problem in that regards. And it's because we all come together with common goals, and we all learn about each other. We spend a lot of time with each other, and we move forward. You know, we don't have the same amount of problems that maybe society as a whole has in our atmosphere.
Next, we've got Mark Kisla, followed by Mike Kliss. Mark, go ahead, please.
Vic, I want to ask you, what's the responsibility of an NFL coach to his community in times like these, beyond just winning football games? But first, I want to get at this idea. What was your relationship with policemen as a kid, young man growing up in Pennsylvania, and how does that differ with how many of your players must look at policemen from their backgrounds?
Well, obviously, I grew up in a small town, but it's not like it was rural or anything. But you know, it was different than a lot of the players that you're alluding to have grown up in. So that's obviously different. But again, I have been able to meet. You know, I've lived in 8 or 9 different cities all across the country, and I've met a ton of police officers during that time. We have a bunch that work with us for the Broncos, and 98 to 99% of the policemen are great people that perform a great service for minimal pay and do a great job. It's the 1 or 2% that haven't been able to uphold the honor of the badge and the uniform that have gotten us into this place. And so I think the policemen are great. And I think most of our players would tell you that too. But, you know, when you have a situation that has come up here recently and has happened in the past and has probably happened other times that we never hear about, they have to be rectified. And maybe now is the time that we can all work together to get that done.
Next, we've got Mike Kliss, followed by Ryan O'Halloran. Mike, go ahead, please.
Yes, Vic. Locally, maybe not nationally, but locally there's a lot of excitement and I think pretty fair, high expectations for your team. Do you monitor that thing? Are you a bulletin board guy, or do you feel like you have to manage expectations with your team? How do you do that?
Well, it's been a little hard to do that, you know, since we're not together. You know, we are together remotely. But it would be easier for me to do that. But I have told Patrick to make the players a little bit less available to you guys. You know, because they all seem you guys want to pump their tires, and they're suckers for that too, like we all are. And we've got to go out and do it. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We did end the season on a high note. We do believe we've improved our roster, but that doesn't mean anything. You know, we've got a lot of work to do in training camp, building up to that first game, and I'm confident our guys will come in with the right attitude.
Next, we've got Ryan O'Halloran, followed by Michael Spencer. Ryan, go ahead, please.
Hey, Vic, from your observation so far, what have you seen from Drew Lock in terms of how he's grasping what Pat Shurmur is teaching and how he's leading this group via video?
I think he's doing a good job. I think he's picked up right where he left off last year. You know, Drew came in here last year and everything was tough and new and not easy for him. And he was the guy that, you know, ended up hurting his thumb on his throwing hand, which kept him out of action for 10 plus weeks or so. And we eventually got him in there and he improved on a weekly basis. We won some games, which is always good. And he's just continued that upward trend throughout the offseason. I think he's done a great job learning the new offense. He's done a great job with Pat and Mike Shula and dealing with them on a daily basis with the Zoom meetings. I know he's leading workouts with players locally here, you know, where some of them get together and try and run the routes and the new concepts we're teaching. He's ready to go. He's chomping at the bit. I've talked to him a lot, and all's good on that front right now.
Next, we've got Michael Spencer, followed by James Palmer. Michael, go ahead, please.
Hey, Vic, you've obviously been in the league a really long time, and social justice issues and NFL players becoming activists kind of came to the forefront in 2016. So how have you seen the league evolve and change during that time and during your time in the league?
Oh, I don't know that it's changed a whole lot, to be honest with you. I haven't seen a great change other than I just don't think there's been a tremendous change. And I don't say that to be negative. I think our problems in the NFL along those lines are minimal. We're a league of meritocracy. You earn what you get what you earn. I don't see racism at all in the NFL. I don't see discrimination in the NFL. You know, we live in a great atmosphere. Like I alluded to earlier, we're lucky. We all live together, joined as one for one common goal, and we all intermingle and mix tremendously. You know, if society reflected an NFL team, we'd all be great.
Next up, James Palmer, followed by Zach Stevens. James, go ahead, please.
Hey, Vic, hope you're well. Kind of two parts. They're a little bit different. First one, you mentioned Justin and kind of what he's been out doing. Do you talk to your players about staying safe and then encouraging them to use their platform to go out? And then the other part is football. And how does, as a head coach, some different head coaches approach this differently. How do you pop into these meetings? How do you go about kind of the virtual off season and your interaction with the different groups?
I do pop in and out of the meetings. In a normal off season, the first 3 to 4 weeks, even when I was a defensive coordinator, you know, those weeks are for the position coaches to review things from the previous year, watch cut-ups to where they can learn from the previous year, and then dive into relearning the defense or the offense and anything new that we're talking about doing schematically for the upcoming season. I've talked to all our players several times during the pandemic. I've talked to more than a few since what happened last week. I encourage all of them to do what they feel is the best to do, just to be safe. I think peaceful, constructive protests are good. And if they feel like they need to play a part in that, I'm all for it.
Guys, we got time for a few more. Next up, Zach Stevens, followed by Brandon Cristal. Zach, go ahead, please.
Hey, Coach, have you made a decision on if the rest of the offseason will be virtual, or are you still waiting to hear from the NFL? And how far behind the 8 ball will you be if you don't get on the field before training camp?
Well, I don't make that decision. The NFL does. And right now, you know, we won't be on the field until training camp. If that changes between now and then we will adjust. So our meetings will continue to be virtual. And the second part, we won't be behind any more than anybody else is. You know, it'd been different if half the teams were shut down and half weren't. So it's even Steven, you know, and luckily me and a bunch of the other coaches have had experience with the lockout in 2011. And from a football standpoint, it's very similar to that. So I'm not too worked up or worried about where we're at versus where we could be. It happened in 2011. I was with the Niners then, and we were a totally new staff where everything was new. We haven't even met our players, and we didn't meet our players until training camp started. So, and we did fine that year, and I don't see it as a big issue.
Guys, last one, Brandon Cristal, KOA. Brandon, go ahead, please.
Hey, Coach, we heard last week that there was maybe a chance head coaches and some other coaches were going to get in the practice facilities this week. Obviously, that'll happen at some point. How much does that change what you're able to do with the players still not in the building? Is that a big thing, or does that just get you more comfortable to being back in your normal work environment, or are you not worried about when you get back knowing it'll happen at some point?
Well, it doesn't change anything as far as our relations with the players because they still won't be allowed in up to that point. So we will continue to meet with them and communicate with them the way we have been the last couple months. But it would serve a good purpose for us as coaches to get back in there to where we can meet together, to where we can get used to the new protocols that all the buildings are going to have moving forward as it relates to the virus and the control of it. So there would be a lot of good that could come of it when that does happen. And hopefully it will happen for us soon. But I really don't know if and when that will happen.